In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a retirement budget. And I found that a lot of people don't like the word budget because it means having to cut back. And usually if you're thinking about retirement, you're not wanting to cut back. You're wanting to spend fully and really enjoy the resources that you've saved. So in today's video, maybe we should call it a retirement spending plan, but I'm going to take you through and show you exactly how you can create a retirement budget for free. We want to help as many people as possible create this retirement spending plan for free. Now, there are some more advanced tools within the calculator, and I'll show you this in a minute, that are paid features. But when it comes to creating the retirement spending plan, this is a free portion of the calculator. So if you're ready, let's dive in. Now, some people are going to make it sound like creating a retirement budget is something that's difficult to do. It is going to take a little bit of time, and the more detailed you are, the more confidence you're going to have heading into retirement, because again, the spending is the piece that you have the most control over. And if you're getting ready to retire in the next year or two, really getting a solid grasp on where your money is going to go or where your money is going is going to help you identify whether or not you've saved enough. I would even argue that the budgeting or the spending piece is the most important part of a retirement plan. But you'll notice this is the retirement budget calculator. Once you log in, I'm going to show you this make-believe couple that we created, John and Nancy. He was born 1962, she was born 1964. And I'm just going to show you how to start creating a budget for your specific situation and help you with some of the areas where people run into trouble or they find that it's challenging or confusing. So if you're ready, the first thing we'll do here is we'll click on the budget tab. And you notice we've got the budget broken down by the income that they're going to have coming in. So we've got income and expenses. And then we have it housing, loans and liabilities, food and personal care, insurance and medical, vehicles and transportation, travel and entertainment, and giving and miscellaneous. One of the things you'll find is that many of your expenses actually happen, they reoccur every single month. Like if you have a mortgage, that really doesn't change. It just happens every single month as you're getting ready to retire. There are some expenses that do change though, or some things that maybe aren't as clear to you. Things like how much money do you spend at the grocery store or how much money do you spend on gas. So I'm going to show you how to do that. But one of the first things I want you to think about as you're creating this retirement spending plan is to start with the fun part, because you didn't work hard all these years just to try to save every penny and not have any fun. So down here under travel and entertainment, you'll notice for John and Nancy, what we're saying for them is that they're going to spend $10,000 when they retire. And they're going to put that on the debit card. That expense is going to go up with inflation every year at 3%. And it's going to happen from January 2025. So he's planning to retire in 2025. And it's going to happen for 10 years, basically, up through 2035. They're going to spend $10,000 a year and really go on a nice vacation every year. So that's an easy way to start having this budget discussion if it's hard to talk about finances. But let me show you a couple of other things that I want you to be thinking about. Number one, here under housing. So they have real estate taxes. Even once their mortgage gets paid off, the real estate taxes are not going to go away. So we need to be planning for these taxes. You'll notice we have this set as a $6,000 a year. It's a joint expense, meaning that no matter if somebody's alive, somebody's going to have to pay that expense. And we have the frequency set to custom. And the reason that and you're really going to like this custom feature as I explain it to you, but custom means in this case that they're going to pay that expense every April. Now, if we set it to annual, by default, it automatically makes it a January expense. By coming over here to the payment months, we can specify the specific month that they're going to pay that bill. So they pay their property taxes every year in April. Now, the next thing I want to show you is their electric bill. So you notice that we have this broken down into electric spring and summer and electric in winter. These folks live in Washington State, and so I'll show you how you can go about figuring this out for you. Now, you notice in this spreadsheet, basically what we did was we just took and looked back over the course of the past year and said in May, what was their electric bill? June, July, August, September, October, and November. You'll notice that the electric bill is a little bit lower in these months, and it's a little bit higher in December, January, February, March, and April. So you could create a separate line item in the calculator for each month and really get detailed. Or you could just say, well, on average, during the spring and summer, we spend about $336 a month. And then during the winter months, we spend on average about $440 a month. That's one way to do it. The way that I personally like to do it is to say, okay, how much do you spend on the spring and summer? What was the highest bill for that particular month? And you identify that and you say, okay, well, I'm going to always aim high so that I'm aiming a little bit high on the budget. I've always found that when you're budgeting, it's better to aim a little bit high than too low. So we're going to assume that every month during the spring and summer, their bill costs $383. And then in the month of, in the winter months, we're going to assume that we use the highest bill, $493. That way, hopefully, they will have over budgeted and they'll have a little bit of leeway. Like I say, if you really want to be granular, you can actually create a separate expense for each month. But in this case, we're just going to use spring and winter as our budgeting. The next thing here, under garbage, they only pay $100 every 3 months for this expense. So you can notice here we just selected 3 months, and then automatically January, April, July, and October are selected as the months that that expense happens. And then they have propane that they pay for twice a year. So we're going to say that they pay that in January and August to fill up their propane tank. Now, you'll notice we've got a lot of different placeholders in here. So homeowners association dues, sewer, cable, internet, cell phone, home phone, security system. We tried to give you a lot of template data, things that other people have as expenses. If something doesn't apply to you, you can always delete a row. Or if you want to add a custom row specific to your situation, you can always add a custom row into the calculator. But for this example, we're just going to, under the housing expense, we're just going to have real estate taxes, the electric bill, their garbage, and their propane. Okay, another expense that people can sometimes struggle with is the loans and liabilities. So in this case, they have property taxes, but they still have a mortgage, and their principal and interest payment's $1,800 a month. That's a joint expense. They're going to pay it monthly. There's no inflation on that expense because it's a mortgage. It doesn't go up with inflation. Now their insurance and their taxes go up with inflation, but that's why we have them broken down as to two different expenses. On the principal and interest, that's zero inflation expense on that, and it's going to get paid off in 2029. So when you add an ending date to an expense, the expense will stop in the future. Because again, we're really trying to model what your expenses are going to be and how they're going to ebb and flow over time. They're going to have more expenses for travel in the early years during those go-go years. And then we also want to see what it looks like when that when the house gets paid off and they don't have that mortgage anymore in 5 years. The next area that some people can get hung up is on groceries. So what I encourage you to do, what I find is a lot of times people do all of their spending either on one debit card or one credit card. So if that's the case, just go through your debit card, and I'll show you what this looks like. So for groceries, we said, we just went through their debit card transactions and said, okay, in September, they spent $85, $48, $18, $22, $47. Now, when we talk about groceries, I'm just talking about anything you buy at the store for household goods. So it could be paper towels, it could be toilet paper, it could be cleaning supplies. Instead of trying to break it down, like how much are you actually spending on food versus household goods, we just put it all together because oftentimes when you go to the grocery store, you're including all of those things. So this could be like you're shopping at Walmart, Target, Safeway, Fred Meyer, Central Market, Costco. You just, all these different grocery stores you go through. And then you just, you make it easy on yourself, round up or round down to the nearest dollar, and add up everything for the month of September, October, November, December. Now you could do this for every month if you wanted to, but I find if you have 3 to 4 months of data, it's going to get you in the ballpark for how much you're spending at grocery store. And you can see in this case, the monthly average was $2,271 is how much they spend at the grocery store. And that's both on food and goods. So over here we say, okay, we're going to assume $2,271 monthly. They're going to spend that on their debit card, and it's going to go forever, and it's not discretionary. But this couple, they also like to eat out, so we're going to say that they're spending $1,000 a month on restaurants, and that is also going to get paid on their debit card. It's going to happen. It's going to go up with inflation over time. But we are saying that this is a discretionary expense. So the difference is essential expenses are things that you cannot not pay for. So you're going to have groceries. Even if you choose not to dine out, you're still going to need to buy food for you and your spouse or your family. A mortgage is not discretionary. You have to pay the mortgage or they come take the house away. But some expenses are essential, some are discretionary. When we mark things as discretionary, it just helps us identify if we had to cut back, where would be the areas that we would go to cut back. So like if you have a Netflix subscription, maybe that's something that you would cut back on if you had to, or any kind of streaming services, if you had to cut back on those are things you could cut back on. They're paying for dry cleaning right now because they're still working. So we went through and looked at all of the dry cleaning expenses they had, just like we did with the groceries, and we found that on average they're spending about $84 a month on dry cleaning. The neat thing about this, though, is when they retire, this expense is going to go away. So they're going to retire January of 2025. So we're going to show that that dry cleaning expense is discretionary. They could always, iron their own clothes if they needed to, and that it's going to stop in December of 2024. So that's a way that you can go through, and budgeting this, creating a spending plan is different than tracking all of your money. So this is the purpose of the retirement budget calculator, is not to try to replace things like Mint or YNAB or Dave Ramsey's Every Dollar. Those tools are all about tracking your money every month and making sure you're telling your money where to go. The purpose of the retirement budget calculator is to help you understand what your spending is now, and then project that into the future to help you understand whether or not you've saved enough and if you're going to be able to retire. So if you want to stick around a little bit longer, I'll show you this John and Nancy scenario so you can see from a retirement planning standpoint what it looks like. Now you'll notice these time, assets, liabilities, and budget data, those are all free on the free level of the calculator, but things like the tax module, future view, buckets, goals, community, those are premium features. So in John and Nancy's case, we come over here and we see John and Nancy, June 1962, April 1964. They're both going to retire January 1st of 2025. We've got their assets and liabilities in here. So they have $2.1 million of assets and $108,000 of liabilities and a net worth of $2 million. And the way that that's broken down is they have a checking account, savings account, brokerage account, 401k, a Roth, and an HSA. And then you'll notice here we put in custom rates of return. So we're going to say, okay, we're going to assume 0%, 3%, and just a 4% growth rate, and then how much risk they're taking with each of these assets. We put in their house here that's valued at $600,000. And then they have a little bit of a liability. They owe $108,000 on the mortgage, which will be paid off in 5 years. And then we have the budget data. So we talked about expenses. The other piece is income. Right now, they have wages of $10,000 a month. That's going to end in December of 2024. And then he's going to have Social Security that's going to start right in January of 2025 when he retires. And then her Social Security will start when she turns 62. In their case, they're going to both start it pretty early. $1,000 a month at 62, which will be April of 2026 is when that will start. So once you have all this information in here, let me show you a couple of the cool things that you can really dive down and see in more detail. First of all, in the Quick View report for budgeting purposes, you can see their income, their deductions, taxes, their expenses. And in this case, right now, in this year, because he's still working, they've got a surplus. They have more money coming in than they have expenses going out. And then you can see how their expenses are broken down by the different categories. You can see their essential and their discretionary expenses on average. And then we give you this calendar view. So you can kind of see the ebb and flow of how things are going to change because, like in their case, they pay property taxes in April. So you can see down here in April, their expenses are higher because they have that one-time expense that happens in April. Some of the expenses happen every month. Some only happen quarterly. Some happen semi-annually, and so you can go through and see how their spending is going to change over time. Well, one other thing I wanted to show you here on the budget, I mean, this is so cool. Under the housing expenses, remember we have their electric and their winter happening, and it's a custom time frame. So this is happening May, June, July, August, September, October, and November, and this is happening in January, February, March, April, and December. That way the calculator knows, when you look at that calendar view of expenses, it knows that, okay, the winter months you're going to have a higher electric bill, and the spring and summer it's going to be a little bit lower. And so you can see what that looks like here. You can see that ebb and flow on the Quick View report. The purpose of the monthly details report is just to help you make sure you're not missing anything. You know, life gets complicated, and people have life insurance premiums and long-term care insurance premiums and these other different types of insurances that they're paying for. So this report just lets you run a report so you can say, okay, what are all the bills that are coming due in January? So you can organize this to make sure that things aren't getting missed. And then what a lot of people want to see, the net worth report just helps break down your assets and liabilities by liquid investable assets, the money that you can actually spend to help supplement your income, and then real estate. In this case, they have the liabilities. So you can see their net worth is $2,062,000. And then on the future view, this is the piece that people get really excited about, because what it's going to show them is In this case, you can see he has income, $120,000 a year, and we've got the deductions for his 401k, his estimated taxes based on the federal income tax liability. We automatically do those calculations over here. And then on the future view, you can see this first year right now, they're in a really good position, and we're just going to assume their money's only growing at 3% per year. Next year in 2025, when they're retired, they'll only have his Social Security initially, and their budget requires $92,000 a year. So that means they're having a shortfall. That means they have less money coming in than they have going out. So they're going to have to take some money out. And the default withdrawal order is to spend non-qualified accounts first. So they're going to spend their checking, then their savings account, and then their brokerage account in that order. When they get down to 2026, her Social Security starts. So she has a partial year of Social Security. By 2027, both of their Social Securities have fully kicked in as inflation-adjusted income. And you can see they need $96,000. Now, look down here in 2029. Notice that their budget changes. And that's because, remember, we had their house being paid off. So the mortgage goes away. They still have the property taxes and insurance, but they no longer have the principal and interest payment anymore. That's no longer there. And then the next thing you'll see is, remember, in 2035, we had their budget staying pretty high for that extra travel they were going to do. But at 74 and 72, at age in the year 2036, their expenses are going to drop down again because we assume that they're no longer spending that $10,000 a year on travel. Now, you could go in here and adjust this. Maybe you want to spend $5,000 a year on travel at that point. Or, I mean, make it unique and custom to you. That's the whole idea behind having a good spending plan. And it's really your spending plan that's going to help give you the confidence to know whether or not you've saved enough to be able to retire with confidence. Now, you'll notice we just assume right now everything's growing at 3%. Remember, we had those custom rates of return. So if we want to allow custom rates of return, we can see now we're assuming 0% on cash, 3% on the savings account, and 4% on brokerage accounts. So we can see different growth models. Or maybe we want to look historically and say, well, what would have happened if we would have had like a 60% stock, 40% bond portfolio and experienced a historical sequence of returns? What would their portfolio look like in that situation? So you can see those different return sequences. You could say, what if there was a bad timing sequence of returns? So you could see how much money they would have in that scenario. But if we just go back to using this simple growth rate, assume a 3% return, and then run the numbers down, his life expectancy in this model we said was age 82 and hers is age 85, you can see we're assuming that they still have about $1.3 million remaining at the end of their life, not including the value of their house, just their liquid investable assets. So again, your spending is the piece you have the most control over. You can't control what the stock market's going to do. You can have a really good investment strategy to complement your retirement plan, but you can't really control it. So it's your spending is where you have the most agency. It's where you're going to have the most confidence. The more time you spend putting together a really good spending plan, a really good budget, the more confidence you're going to have to know that you can retire and spend freely. That's really what you want. You see, if you don't have the spending plan, then every time you go to the store, or every time you go out to eat, you're always in the back of your mind thinking, boy, are we spending too much? Is our retirement plan going to be okay? Have we saved enough? Are we going to run out of money? And we want to take away all of those types of fears. And one way that we can alleviate a lot of that is by really going through understanding what you spend now and then trying to project that out into the future. A couple other features that are advanced on the calculator are, number one, you've got the dashboard that gives you a picture of your overall whole financial situation, including a countdown timer to retirement. We've got the future view that we talked about. The Buckets tab helps you visualize how to diversify your money across time segments. So if you need money that you're going to spend in the first couple of years of retirement, you want that to be low risk and money that you're not going to have to touch for a long period of time, you can be more aggressive with. And then we have this goals section over here, and goals are really exciting. Maybe you have some lifetime goals, some things you've always wanted to do, go skydiving, hike the Camino de Santiago, take a trip to France, go to Italy, go to Ireland. I mean, whatever it is you've always wanted to do, when you sit down and you start having these conversations about money, sometimes it's best to start with the dreaming part. Start with the focus on the things you've always wanted to do as you begin to venture into retirement. Now, we also have daily goals in here, so that if you want to try to drink a certain amount of water every day or work out every day, we're fresh here in the beginning of 2024. And so this is a good time to be thinking about what are the little daily actions that you can be doing every single day to just make sure that you're living your best life. All right, I'm really excited about this. Now, again, the calculator has a free tier for doing the budgeting, but it also has the paid tier if you want any of the more advanced features. I hope you found this helpful. I hope that you're going to have a great retirement. If you run into any issues along the way, just click on this button to talk to an advisor, especially if you're looking for help with the investment management piece. We've got a strategy I think you'd be really interested in hearing about that's academically based and keeps your fees very low. We use low-cost index funds, ETFs, to create the models and help you diversify your money across time. It can be a really good strategy for you if that's something that you're looking for some help with. Anyways, I hope you have a great retirement. Thanks so much.